Random history of the day, Beowulf. The poem Beowulf is well known throughout the world. What's amazing is that only one copy comes to us from the Middle Ages. Only one manuscript ever existed that we know of. No one knows the true origins, and it's an interesting tale to tell of what we do know. It is in exactly one medieval manuscript. It was written around the year 1000. It passed through monastic libraries in the Middle Ages. Henry VIII sold it to a 17th century collector named Robert Cotton. Cotton is very interested in the history of England and has a large collection of books from monastic libraries. When he dies, he gives his library to the state. It moved around until 1700 and ends up in a place called Ashburnham House. That's not a good sign. Nothing good can come from a place called Ashburnham House. Not surprisingly, a fire broke out that burnt down part of the home. Almost all of the printed books were destroyed and some of the manuscripts. The Beowulf manuscript was burning on one side. See the charred marks there? Every line is missing the last word or couple of syllables. The legend goes that the manuscript was thrown from a window while engulfed in flames, and by the grace of God it landed in a bucket of water. So the one manuscript was almost destroyed forever. But was it really written in the year 1000? It seems like a much older poem. It feels like a much older poem. One assumption is that the poem itself was an oral poem to start with, the kind that is read aloud by bards for many years before being written down. There is evidence that it could be like this. One example is the use of kennings, a unit of verse that enriches imagery. Poets use them as memory aids when they're talking. The poet of Beowulf likes little verbal riddles as well, as good Anglo-Saxon poets do. For instance, Beowulf's name. One interpretation of that is that it means bee-seeker. What seeks bees? A bear. His name means bear. So it may have been written down in the year 1000, but existed as an oral poem for many years before that. There are really three good dates to use when trying to figure out when it was written. There's the year 1000 when the manuscript appeared. If that's true, then it must have been written by a scholar who knew the 6th century very well enough to write convincingly about the time period. That's a nice idea, but I don't really buy it. The other two are much different. Let's look at the first one, the earliest one first. There seems to be an actual date in the poem, the year 584. To see it, look on lines 1191 to 1214. I'm sure you all have Beowulf open. The cup was carried to him, kind words spoken and welcome and wealth of wrought gold graciously bestowed, 2 arm bangles, a mail shirt and rings, and the most resplendent torque of gold I ever heard tell of anywhere on earth or under heaven. Blah blah blah. Hygelac the Geat, grandson of Swerting, wore this neck ring on his last raid. At bay under his banner he defended the booty treasure he had won. Fate swept him away because of his proud need to provoke a feud with the Frisians. He fell beneath his shield, in the same gem-crusted kingly gear he had worn when he crossed the frothing wave vat. So the dead king fell into Frankish hands, and Alright, so what does all this mean? Let's cover the terms first. A torque is a necklace of sorts, a big neck ring, and Frisians are from the mouth of the Rhine River. What we have here is a named individual and a raid. Wait! We know when this happened. Gregory of Tours tells us about this. He tells us about a northern king called Hygelac, raiding south in Frisia and getting killed. This poem, written around the year 1000, recalls accurately an event from the year 584. We have 2 polls now. The earliest year is 584, and the latest is 1000 when the poem came out in a manuscript. But for fun, let's throw in another date, right in the middle. This has to do with a guy named Offa around the line 1950. Beowulf takes place in Scandinavia, but Offa is an English name. In fact, it is the only English name in the poem. Very few Englishmen have this name. One happens to be quite famous. In the year 800, there's a very famous king, Offa, king of Mercia. Could they be related? One idea is that Offa the character is paying homage to King Offa the guy. We know that Offa is a patron of poets and surrounded himself with bards, so the poem may have been composed around the year 800 in the court of Offa, or a bard who knew the story told it to Offa and included his name. That version then continued on. We now have 3 dates, one that feels too late, one that feels too early, and one right in the middle that doesn't feel that great either way. Nobody knows exactly what the date is, and we probably will never know for sure. So, happy reading!